Vice President
Here.
Member Gresham,
Here.
Member Kazi,
Here.
Member Spear,
Here.
Member Thompson,
Here.
all are present.
Thank you. First order of business is adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So
or any
moved.
changes? No, it's been moved.
I will
This-
second.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Thompson. All-
Ms.
Ms. Spear.
Speaking of myself.
Any discussion? Please vote.
That's all I got. I only know how to plug and unplug.
Had to go to one of my partners off home. No. Isn't it wonderful how technology makes our lives easier and faster? While she's doing that, I want to remind all the massive number of people in the crowd to turn off your cell phones or put them on silence.
We can always do a verbal vote, right? Okay.
The agenda is adopted. Now for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Thompson, will you lead us in the pledge, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to item 2.1 on the agenda, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Vice President Holcomb. Welcome back to school, everyone. I hope each and every one of you had a restful winter break filled with time spent with family and friends. January is School Board Recognition Month. Our school board members are extraordinary leaders who voluntarily tackle an enormous job and do it in a manner that it just illustrates what incredible advocates they are for our students, our staff, and our community. Thank you so much for your service to the Madison School District, sincerely. Join me in welcoming Christine Thompson to her first official meeting as a member of the Madison School Board. You have done so much for our community as a parent and a stakeholder, and we know you will be an impactful, and already have been, an impactful board member. So thank you and welcome, Christine. Madison is hosting a job fair, Dr. Lomalee shared with me, on Wednesday, January 5th, January 25th, I apologize, Wednesday, January 25th, from 4 to 6. What makes this job fair interesting is we have current openings right now, and if you're interested in getting to know Madison for next year and building relationships and inquiring about openings for next year, so we're doing an and both. Job now, job later, come to the job fair. Join us to meet our team and learn why this is an amazing place to work. I do want to take a moment to bring up the challenge facing every public school district in Arizona, the aggregate expenditure limit. The aggregate expenditure limit, for those of you that haven't heard, is a spending cap developed in the 80s, the 1980s. As a reminder, the Arizona Constitution caps the total amount that can be spent by public school districts in our state in one school year. If public schools hit the aggregate expenditure limit before the end of the fiscal year, they must immediately cut their budget, even if the legislature allocated this funding. Unless this limit is waived, like it was last year, all public schools will be forced to cut 20% of the current funding for this school year. This is not new money. This is already allocated in our budget. The amount the Madison School District would be forced to cut this year is $7.1 million. Please contact your lawmakers and ask that the limit be fixed. This governing board approved a resolution asking for this in September, and we are still waiting for a solution with only 7 weeks away. We want to focus on academics and teaching and learning and support and staffing, and this is something that, a hurdle that we do not need to face at this time. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Karen. Now it's time for for governing board reports. Ms. Gresham, would you like to start?
Good evening. It's nice to be back, and welcome, Christine. And let's see, we had our spelling bee rehearsal this morning, so a few of us will be there on Friday for our district spelling bee. So we're looking forward to that Friday morning at the Madison. Everyone's welcome. And let's see, I was at the Capitol yesterday for opening day of the session, so I will be doing everything I can to advocate for the lifting of the AEL and just funding for our public schools in general. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you so much. Yes, I look forward to our intrepid spellers. This Friday, in our rehearsal, they went through and asked me many questions. Many good questions, and so I have my homework set out for me. I wanted to comment also on the AEL. One of our former board members, Matt Gress, actually introduced legislation to waive the AEL for 1 year on his first day as a state legislator, and I wanted to acknowledge that and thank him for introducing that, considering that a special session was not called last session as was promised. So I'm hopeful that we will see some movement on that issue. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Kazi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to welcome everyone back and say thank you for the extraordinary support that I and my family have received since I had my open heart surgery. I'm in week 4 of recovery. And at week 6, they tell me I will be fully recovered, which I'm very excited about because I'm starting to lose my mind, not being able to drive or open a dishwasher or a refrigerator. But I just, the support that I've felt from each and every one of you and all the folks that even aren't here tonight is just been quite overwhelming, and I just really appreciate that. I wanted to say thank you to Governor Hobbs for the leadership she expressed during her State of the State address yesterday. It is clear we have a governor who is very focused on public education, and I have to say that for me as a school board member, as a parent, as a taxpayer, it was really a wonderful thing to hear. It was a long time coming in my mind. I'm also excited to hear that Representative Gress is continuing to support of public education. I'll be happy to see some support from Republicans and Democrats on legislation that needs to address this important issue. And again, thank you again.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Member Holcomb. I just wanted to say thank you for all the well wishes. I'm excited to be here and serve on the board. I also want to thank Dr. Guerin and the executive team for all the onboarding meetings I've been having one-on-one with them, and I think I have a couple more to complete, but really appreciate that deeper dive on policy and the inner workings of the district, and look forward to visiting each of the sites here in the next couple of months. So thank you for that. Also want to echo what Member Kazi said about support for education in the governor's address. I'm hopeful that she'll call a special session in the coming weeks, but glad to see that Representative Gress has put that on the table, and some others have put those issues on the table. This is a nonpartisan issue. The money has been there. It was allocated by the legislature, and we need to take care of this so we don't come into a crisis here in the next couple of months. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I also am very much looking forward to this year. Hopefully at the state level, we'll get and continue to get support for public education and fix some of the issues that we have to be fixed. I'm very excited about finishing off the school year and starting off 2023 with our students and faculty and all the schools. This is always a very exciting time, and see if we can really finish strong through the end of the year. Ms. Thompson, I welcome you to the dais. Be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. And I'm glad to hear that you're getting the training. There is a lot to learn as being a board member, but I'm sure you're more than up to the task, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Last two things I'm also looking forward to, the spelling bee, but I wasn't at the rehearsal this morning. I get a senior exemption for having done it for so long, but I am really looking forward to Friday morning. It is always a lot of fun, and it's amazing. I would be out of the spelling bee in about the third round at max, and we've gone through many, many rounds. So I'm looking forward to that. Also looking forward to, as the Madison Education Foundation is bringing back a tradition, and something that people are really excited about, is the Madison Tasting Tour, which is where we load a bunch of adults on 2 school buses, limited to 100 people. It usually sells out. Go to restaurants in the neighborhood area, have 4-course traveling meal, and Miss Ball is hosting one of the buses. I'm hosting one, and I understand she's dropped the gauntlet to have her bus more fun than mine. So I'm trying to make that as difficult as possible. In any event, with that, let's continue on with the agenda. Next up are calls for the public. Are there any calls for the
We
public?
have no calls to public today.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, next up is our consent agenda, which has exactly one item on it, personnel matters. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Did you get the names? Yep, okay. Just, you didn't know there was going to be a test. Okay. Is moved second, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Next up on our agenda is the election of the 2023 Governing Board officers. I'm running the meeting right now because our president, our dearly departed president, Marcus Osborne, is not here. He's enjoying not being on the school board, but as vice president, I'm running the meeting. I usually try to avoid using the script, but I'm going to try something different and actually follow directions. We are nominating 2 positions. I want to explain for the public how this board has proceeded. This is a very functional board, and we use the officer positions as part of the development of our board members, and it is a very collaborative position. So the position of president really presides over the meetings, but doesn't control what the board does, unlike many boards. We also use the vice president position. Is normally we assume that the vice president will move up into the president's position, and it gives a nice continuous transition. And being vice president is also a good way to prepare somebody to be president. And someday I hope to finish that preparation. But in any event, with that, I will take a nomination and a second for president of the board.
Mr. Holcomb,
Yes.
I would like to begin by nominating you, Scott Holcomb, for president of the Madison Elementary School District Governing Board.
And I will accept the nomination.
Excellent.
Is
Since
there a
I made
second?
the motion, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. If not, we will call for the vote. And that passes unanimously. Now, are there any nominations for vice president?
Mr. Board President, I
Madam
would
Spear,
like to nominate Karen Gresham for vice president.
is there a second?
I second the motion.
So a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? If there are no other nominations, please vote.
I believe we'll have to do this one verbally since it's the same motion.
It is the same motion. My mistake. I should have.
No, we did it correctly. We just
Okay.
have to do a roll call vote.
Okay. Ms. Gresham, do you accept the nomination? I
thank
think
you.
that we should, before vote.
Okay,
Make
yes,
sure.
sure, I will accept.
Okay.
As you can tell, I'm totally in control of this meeting. Now that you've accepted, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And that brings us to our second action item, the governing board representatives for the 2023 Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. Dr. Guerin, would you like to summarize what that entails?
Absolutely, President Holcomb. So typically, we have an Arizona School Board delegate that attends the delegate assembly and helps develop priority for policy throughout the state as a part of the Arizona School Board Association. We typically formally choose a delegate and then informally choose a backup just in case. It's also, as President Holcomb explained, an excellent opportunity for training, so layers of training for the future.
Okay. Anyone want to volunteer or nominate somebody else against their will?
Mr. Holcomb?
Yes.
Or President Holcomb. I'm going to have to get used to saying that. I have it on a fairly high authority that Ms. Thompson might be interested in that role, or at least participating in some capacity.
I'd be happy to either serve as the delegate or to serve as the alternate.
I nominate Ms. Thompson. Not that I don't want to. I'd be fine doing it again, but.
Yes. It's moved to second. Are there any other nominations? Please, well, let's since we have that, let's also include in that our alternative. Alternate, is anyone willing to be the alternate?
I'm fine being the alternate.
Okay. I think I will second that. I think Madison, as always, will be well represented at the ASBA Delegate Assembly. With that, see, I got a motion, got a second. So we have a motion for the delegate and the alternate. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Next up is our election of the governing board representative for the Madison Education Foundation. And I have served in that role.
No, it's
What?
5.3.
Oh, I skipped
President
one. I was looking at it, sorry. Oh, this one's more fun. Governing board representative for fiscal year '23 audit review. Party, and, is there any nomination or volunteers? Who did it this last year?
I think I've done it last 2 years, I think.
And was it everything you expected? No. Are there any other volunteers?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Ms. Spear,
Volunteer.
I'll take that as a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Ms. Thompson, I think, got in first. Okay. So, any other nominations? Okay, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Now we're up to the governing board representative for the Madison Education Foundation. I've had the honor of serving in that position a number of times, and for this last year, it is very rewarding, and it is also a great way to really get to know, be involved with all the schools and with the Madison Center for the Arts, as well as the foundation. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer or have a nomination? Anyone who wants to take that role?
I'd be interested in doing it, unless anyone else has a preference, but.
I think that there's some synchronicity to having the vice president be, serve in that capacity, in that role. And that way, there is a continuous chain, link. In the past, it has been you for, several years, or me, or Ms. Kazi. You have not?
Do you want to be?
Well, have you not ever had that hat?
No, I've never been nominated.
What?
Oh, don't make me cry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But,
Sorry.
but
Well, if Ms. Kaz is interested, I will nominate.
I mean, I would be interested just given my experience in it, but
Yes, I nominate Ms. Kazi.
well,
I will second that motion.
are you sure?
Yes.
That's very big of you.
Yeah, I'm sure. I will.
By the way, and being the representative does not in any way restrict people's participation. In fact, I intend to continue to be very actively involved in the Madison Education Foundation. So we have a motion, we withdrew the nomination for Ms. Grissom, and Ms. Kazi is a nomination, of motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Please vote.
I'll be her backup.
well, if I can just say, a really well-run nonprofit board does not just depend on its board members to get work done. There should be a really robust committee structure that allows for participation of other community leaders. And so I would definitely be working to make that happen if it doesn't currently exist.
And I think that is where they're at, is really trying to get their committees and that set up and get back into the full swing with the tasting tour, with the gala coming up, with the new MOU between the foundation and the district. So it's a perfect time for you to do that. And Ms. Grissom, I think next year, there can be the dual roles of president and being on the Madison Education Foundation as well. In any event, so with that vote being taken, that brings us up to item 5.5, governing board roles, responsibilities, and protocols. Ms. Spear, do you want to head this up? This has been a project that you've worked on very, very nicely and done a very great job over the years, and are editing your own work right now. So I'll turn the dais over to you.
Thank you so much. I can't even remember exactly when I took this on, but it became clear that governing board responsibilities were sort of a nebulous notion, and they were subject to interpretation depending on whoever ended up sitting in the chair. And I felt, the board that I served with at the time felt that we needed to put some definition to the roles and responsibilities. And so that is how this was identified. And there are some just stylistic, when this was originally written, there was a fair amount of contention in governing boards, not ours, thank goodness. There were some governing boards on the East Valley that were on national news for really unprofessional conduct in my opinion, and I don't think I'm alone in that notion and that thought. So some of the tone of this when I originally wrote it is, I think, obsolete. So there are some kind of tonal changes that I went through. Believe it or not, there were some grammatical errors, which I was rather upset by. But there were just, it's nothing that is really outrageous in terms of a change. There is one sentence that I would like to change that did not make it into the edits, and it's on the very back page. This portion, this code of ethics for school board members, I took from a school board in Massachusetts that was nationally recognized as highly functional and very effective. And this is something that they had adopted. I would like to suggest that we change the sentence at the very end, the second bullet down, inform oneself about current educational issues by individual study and through participation in programs providing needed information such as those sponsored by my state and National School Boards Association. We, as a board, generally operate independently. We do take Arizona School Boards Association guidance. We will use, we obviously participate in the professional development offered through Arizona School Boards Association. It is the primary organization that we have always been members of, and I'm proud to be a member of Arizona School Boards Association. The National School Boards Association is something that I, in my 10 years on the governing board, have never been, I've never participated in anything through them. You know, I just don't feel as though they have, that we rely on their professional development or their information in general. So being that we don't, as a board, generally rely on the National School Board, it felt appropriate to somehow reword that to say those sponsored by local and national organizations. You know.
Yeah, I don't, Ms. Kazi.
I don't have a strong feeling either way, but I will say that I do read we receive the National School Board Association periodical, and I feel it's always an excellent source of information about best practices that are going on around across the country. And a dear friend of mine who I went to high school with served on the Illinois Geneva's public school district board, and I know she benefited a great deal from them. So I think, you know, making it a little more nebulous is not a big deal, but I just want to say that I have used them as a source of information and to be good information.
Yeah, Ms. Gresham.
If I'm not sure if this really is relevant or not, but I believe that ASBA severed ties with the National Board Association anyways, so if that means anything, either way.
Yeah. And in the past, it has been a while, but we used to, I have gone to several of those earlier on, and we've actually presented. Ms. Garvey, I think you presented at the National, and we did the Magna Award, won it a number of years ago, so we have gone to that. And that's something I think, you know, as we go through this discussion, it's something we probably should consider whether we want to do that. We used to have more of a budget that we allocated to that, and then several members would go. And there's always a little, you know, whether you get the bang for the buck and for the limited dollars that we have. But I think that is something we should look at, is whether it makes sense to have a representative. And when we did do that, we would have whoever went come back and report back and bring the information so that it was hopefully valuable for more than just the person who went. And Ms. Garvey, I don't know who else is from, I know you've gone. to the national. I know, Barb, you've gone as well, Ms. Marshall. So I'd be interested in your thoughts about going to that.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin and cabinet, when I did go, I did receive, there were definitely sessions that I could attend and go to that were pertinent to what I did. And honestly, some gave me a different perspective and ways of looking at things, which I definitely value because I do like approaching things from different angles. And then, as Mr. Holcomb said, the district years ago did win the Magna Award, so I have been an award judge after that for NSBA, but not in the recent years.
Thank you, Mr. President and governing board members. The Educational Services team also has been presenters at the NSBA conference, specifically on our school improvement process and the reviews to the governing board, the site visits that we do, and so on. And similar to Ms. Garvey's experience, we have been able to attend the various sessions, and we actually got the idea for the Level Up program that we came back and implemented in Madison through attendance at the NSBA conference.
Yes. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to add that I think it's important. I don't mind getting more broad in the explanation of it, but I think it's important to keep national in there somewhere because there is a lot of value. But we can learn a lot from local school boards in Arizona, but there's a lot we can learn from other states as well. So I'd like to make sure that we keep some reference to if it's state and national associations or something more broad. I'm fine with that.
Ms. Grisham?
Just one last thing real quick. There are, of course, other national, trainings and things like that. So I'm fine with the broader language. But yeah, there's other besides the association.
So based on the feedback, would it be okay if we changed that sentence to say through participations in programs providing needed information, local and national organizations providing needed information, period?
Okay. With that, if it sounds like there's a consensus there, I will entertain a motion to adopt the revisions, unless there's other discussion. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the revisions to the Madison Elementary School District Governing Board roles, responsibilities, and protocols as just amended by Ms. Spear.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Kazi. Any further discussion? Okay, please vote.
President Holcomb, may I explain my vote?
Please.
I wanted to say for the public that may be watching that this is on our website. So if, I'm sure every one of us has received the question, what exactly does a governing board person do, a member do? And so I will oftentimes refer people who are asking that question to this document. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that that was on our website under a governing board.
And Board Member Spear was very helpful in onboarding Ms. Thompson. So.
Good.
May I also explain my vote
Ms. Grisham.
real quick? I just want to thank Ms. Spear for going through this and making these changes for us. Thank you.
And I want to make one comment. Ms. Spear has really spearheaded this from the beginning because we've been able to take advantage of her expertise and her experience. But this was and continues to be something that the whole board has had input into. I mean, when we first structured this is very different than any other school board that I'm aware of. The whole structure of this is very different, and it was done by the whole board, and it has been a living document, and it's my hope that it continues to be. Right. Thank you. Next up is our last action item. We don't have a list of discussion in future meetings on here. Okay. All right. Action item 5.6 is the governing board meetings for the 2023-2024 school year. Dr. Guerin.
President Holcomb, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests, in front of you, you have a hard copy of a proposed governing board regular meeting schedule. It's important to note that policy BE states that the governing board shall hold a meeting at least once a month, and generally the meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. So it's important to note that's in policy, but the calendar doesn't always follow policy in regards to breaks. And I'm sure we do not want to have 2 meetings in a row or a meeting during a scheduled break. So I already noted to the board some changes in regards to that. And we got some input from principals and from Ms. Garvey in regards to her meeting schedule needs regarding financial reporting. So we think this is the best place we've landed in regards to board meetings. So let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. Ms. Kazi.
I just want to comment on the calendar. I'm thrilled to see all the teacher collaborative days. That's wonderful. Also thrilled to see that we're starting on a Tuesday. And the fact that we are retaining our all-staff professional development day. We are definitely following up with the feedback we've received from our staff, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Any other discussion? I do want to mention that this calendar is a little different than most school boards. Most school boards meet on the first and third Tuesdays, but I have Queen Creek council meetings on the first and third Wednesdays, and we changed it to make that work better. But I think we've also found that this really does work overall better than doing the first and third. Gets us off a little bit. Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to adopt the new governing board meetings for 2023-24 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Spears, second by Ms. Thompson. Please vote. That passes unanimously. We do not have it strictly on the agenda, but it's something that we discuss all the time, and I think it is appropriate to talk about future board meetings. Are there any issues? Dr. Guerin, please point out anything you want us to take particular notice of.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Holcomb, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. On January 24th, our next regular board meeting, we will have You Make a Difference, Shining Star, Park, and Camel View, and our Camel View School Showcase will be here. We will have some of our typical consent items. It's exciting to see out-of-state travel for staff and for students coming back on the agenda. So we also have an MOU with Positive Friendship Program where we have therapy dogs with some of our special needs students. Really excited about that. So that will be an MOU, and we'll have our district hearing officer annual renewal. We are excited to present a Madison Education Foundation update on January 24th. We'll talk about the teacher grants, who receive them, and some of what President Holcomb mentioned regarding the foundation. We're also beginning a strategic planning process, a smaller scale, not multi-year, a strategic planning process between the Madison Education Foundation, the Madison Center for the Arts, and of course that's inclusive of the Madison School District. So we have found someone to lead that Ms. Garvey and I just met with today. She's lovely and has experience doing this in Wickenburg. So there's some really exciting things happening with the center and the foundation. So we're going to highlight some of that, though we're just getting started. We will also have very appropriately the MOU with the Madison Education Foundation at that meeting. February this is a busy time of year. We're looking at this year, and we're also looking at next year. So we are, we're just having an executive session as a placeholder. Well, we're going to need to have our employee contracts, but should the adequate, the AEL the aggregate expenditure limit not get fixed by February 7th, we're going to need to start to have some conversations regarding employee contracts and the impact on the school district. So we're going to be optimistic and hope we don't need to do it, but once February begins, we need to start having discussions. So we can have an executive session regarding employment and employee contracts. We're going to take on a lighter note, we'll take our board photo, hopefully, with our new sitting board, and it will be a #1 school showcase. We'll have some typical consent items, and then we are very excited about, that's February, okay, sorry. We're going to talk about a program of psychologist interns where we could pay to have psychologist interns that we grow our own into our own school psychologists. So Dr. Lomley is working hard on that with Ms. Marshall. We will have a budget update and an AEL discussion if needed. And Dr. Lomley's office will bring the certified teacher salary schedule and the certified teacher contract template, which could include some contingency language related to our budget situation. We'll see how that goes. And then February 21st, we are bringing our strategic planning update to you with a big bow on it, a big Madison red bow on it. So that's going to be really exciting. So that's looking ahead.
Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had one item to consider maybe for the January meeting. I know that this board had passed a resolution regarding the AEL back last year, but there was a different governor and a different legislature. Hopefully, in the next 2 weeks, there'll be some movement on that issue, but perhaps we should look at that resolution again and maybe think about moving that forward and presenting that to the new governor and the new legislature.
Yeah, and if you would be interested, since I think that's an excellent idea, we want to take a first draft at seeing if there needs to be any changes based upon the fact that the time difference and the difference in administration.
Yeah, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, that's what you get for, Okay. Any other discussion? I have two things. I just want to make sure. We've had discussion too as we go into these meetings that we're going to continue to have regular information items about things that are happening within this district. I think that's an important thing that we should do. And sometime, it doesn't have to be in one of these meetings, but based upon the discussion we had about the national school boards and the training and ASBA, I've done that a long time, but I've been remiss in the last few years of going to, additional trainings, going that. But and the National School Board Association, those can be useful. I think maybe we should have a discussion and maybe what you think would be worthwhile. For example, that when we send a group from Madison to the National, we should see if there's a board member who wants to go along. I think that could be, there's a lot of, I hate the word, but synergy in relation to that. And I'd like to put that on for at least discussion, not action, if not action, as to what we adopt for a policy of that.
Absolutely. President Holcomb, I think that's a great idea. And we have had several board members go to several trainings last year. And I think Ms. Gresham almost got the certain award for attending. You were really, I think she was robbed, really. I think she should have gotten it. But Ms. Humphreys and I are attending a new board member, new superintendent governance training, and we're inviting Ms. Thompson. So I am a big believer in attending that. And I am attending the National AASA Superintendents Association in San Antonio. There's supposed to be a lot of information regarding recovery of school districts at that. So I will definitely bring that back.
And be bringing it back, you mean you'll report back on what you learned?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I will not be bringing San Antonio back to Arizona, but I will bring the information I gather.
Yeah, you get extra credit for that. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Spears, seconded by Ms. Gresham. Please vote.
Do you need a ride home?
That passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Friendly reminder, photos for President, Vice President, and Ms. Thompson. And congratulations to Jackie.